Hello and welcome to our podcast. It is lovely to have you with us and to have you joining with us, and it's our hope and prayer that you will find this podcast a means of encouraging your faith. My wife is called Pauline. We've been married together 14 years now, and when Pauline and I got married, about a year after we got married, we had what we thought was, and what we still think is, the world's most beautiful dog. This dog was called Holly. It was a chocolate Labrador. It was the best chocolate Labrador you would ever come across. Here's a wee picture of Holly. You're going to see what I mean. She was a gem of a dog with the absolute worst habits. And trust me, we don't need to go into what those habits were here. She was my dog. Everywhere I went, she went with me. Now, a couple of years after having Holly, we decided to get a second dog. And this dog is called Kyle. Here's a wee picture of Kyle. Kyle is over 14 years old, and Kyle is still going very, very strong. And Kyle just won the Golden Oldie category at the Edinburgh Cat and Dog Home. So he is a championship dog. Full of mischief. Really interesting because remember, Holly was my dog, but the day Kyle turned up into our house, Holly took the huff. She stopped being my dog and she became Pauline's dog. And for all the years that the two of them were here, it was absolutely amazing to watch. She never, ever forgave me for bringing another dog into the house. Probably also a good thing that Holly had passed away by the time we got the cat, Darnley, because I'm not sure how the two of them with their two egos would have worked out. But it's really interesting because when Kyle came in and Holly transferred her allegiance, Kyle became my dog. He became my shadow. Everywhere I went, Kyle went with me. If I went from one room to the next, Kyle came with me. If I got up to go out the back garden, Kyle came with me. And when I left the house, Kyle got stressed. It's really interesting in that since the start of this pandemic, Pauline has been working from home. And with her being around in the day now, Kyle has suddenly been presented with a choice. Is he going to be with Pauline or is he going to be with me? And as Kyle was my shadow, Kyle has now become Pauline's shadow. He's literally transferred his allegiance from me to her. I maintain it's because she gives him more snacks. The cat, on the other hand, well, the cat's allegiance is still to the cat. We're both aware that Darnley doesn't really belong to either of us, but Darnley tolerates us as long as we feed him and give him somewhere warm to stay. Now, why am I telling you all this about our domestic situation and our pets? It's a wee illustration that whether we are human, or canine, or feline, we will change our allegiance depending on what we think is best for us. And humans have always been doing this. A long time ago, in the time of the Old Testament, Israel was meant to have allegiance to one God. And Israel was meant to have forsaken all other gods except for that one God, Yahweh. That's where her allegiance was meant to lie. She was meant to be different from all of the other nations round about because Israel had this faithful allegiance to just the one God. And yet, if you and I look back over the history, you will find that, well, sometimes she followed God, sometimes she followed other gods, sometimes she was faithful, sometimes she was unfaithful. And if you were to look over the whole timeline of Israel, what you would find is that she would be deemed pretty unfaithful because Israel as a nation kept straying from God. And when God had had enough of this, he used the Babylonian Empire. He brought them in, if you like, and they conquered Israel. And it was a way of bringing Israel to her senses and seeing exactly what the consequences were of forsaking her allegiance to God and the consequences of her unfaithfulness were. And the way those consequences were brought home initially was through the prophets. So again, if you read the Old Testament, there's a whole series of prophets who kept saying, Israel, Israel, you're being unfaithful, come back to God, it's not going to end well. And today we're thinking about one of those prophets in particular, whose name was Ezekiel. Ezekiel had been a prophet before Israel was exiled. And he'd spent these few years calling them out, saying, look, you must come back to God. You have to realize if you don't come back to God, it is going to be so bad. That was his message. He kept telling them the nation was going to crumble, the nation would be done away with, and none of them listened to him. And duly, in the course of time, Israel as a nation was conquered by the Babylonians. With the best of our people led away in exile to Babylon, amongst whom was Ezekiel. Now, can you imagine how demoralized the Israelites must have been? Their nation was gone, their customs were gone, their heritage, their history, gone. The temple their whole society was built around the temple, looted, essentially gone. Their country in ruins. And walking amongst them was the very person who had told them this was going to happen. I can't imagine that it was easy for Ezekiel at all. But his credibility must have been pretty high, because everything that he prophesied came to pass. I reckon if I'd been in the situation of the Israelites, I would pretty much have given up in despair. Because we're talking of them being in a place where there's no coming back from it. This is it. Their nation, it's ended. It's finished. They're a deported people. They have no future to look forward to. So I think despair would have been a pretty common bedfellow amongst the folks who were there. And when they see Ezekiel, when they see him walking down the streets with them, he's a reminder to them that all this was actually their fault. Then, amazingly, Ezekiel pops up again. And while he was in Babylon with them, God gave to him another prophecy. And you can find this prophecy in Ezekiel chapter 37, and we will have a read of that now. It's called the Valley of Dry Bones. Let's read it together. I felt the powerful presence of the Lord, and his Spirit took me and set me down in a valley where the ground was covered with bones. He led me all round the valley, and I could see that there were very many bones, and that they were very dry. He said to me, Mortal man, can these bones come back to life? And I replied, Sovereign Lord, only you can answer that. He said, Prophesy to the bones. Tell these dry bones to listen to the word of the Lord. Tell them that I, the sovereign Lord, am saying to them, I am going to put breath into you and bring you back to life. I will give you sinews and muscles and cover you with skin. I will put breath into you and bring you back to life. Then you will know that I am the Lord. So I prophesied as I had been told. While I was speaking, I heard a rattling noise, and the bones began to join together. While I watched, the bones were covered with sinews and muscles, and then with skin, but there was no breath in the bodies. God said to me, Mortal man, prophesy to the wind. Tell the wind that the sovereign Lord commands it to come from every direction, to breathe into these dead bodies, and to bring them back to life. So I prophesied as I had been told. Breath entered the bodies, and they came to life and stood up. There were enough of them to form an army. God said to me, Mortal man, the people of Israel are like these bones. They say that they are dried up without any hope and no future. So prophesy to my people Israel and tell them that I, the sovereign Lord, am going to open their graves. I'm going to take them out and bring them back to the land of Israel. When I open the graves where my people are buried and bring them out, they will know that I am the Lord. I will put my breath in them, bring them back to life, and let them live in their own land. then they will know that I am the Lord. I've promised that I would do this, and I will. I, the Lord, have spoken. You thought this was the end, says God. Oh no, this is the beginning of a new chapter. And you're going to be amazed at what I'm going to do. What you thought was dead, I can make live, because I'm God and nothing is impossible for me. Could the people from Israel who were deported have known that just a few decades later their descendants were going to return to Jerusalem in triumph, were going to rebuild the city, rebuild the temple, and the nation was going to come back to life and have a whole new history? No, they couldn't know that, but God knew that. When they were away from their home with all of the rhythms of their old life disrupted, they actually discovered new rhythms. It was while they were exiled as a nation that the synagogues rose. And this was a way of continuing the faith without the need for a central temple. And it has served the Jewish faith well over a couple of millennia. You see, their faith didn't end. It was actually reborn. And never again would Israel prove to be as unfaithful after the exile as she had been previous to the exile. Now, you know, we're in a place where our rhythms of life have been disrupted. And whatever happens when we hopefully go into phase 2 next week, the thing is, right now, we can't actually get into our church buildings. But does that mean our Christian life is over? Or our faith is coming to an end? No chance. No way. I mean, how are you connecting to God right now? You're doing it through a recorded video podcast. You might well be joining our Zoom service or many different Zoom church services over the course of the week. You might be using Alexa to get a prayer app, or Siri, or one of the many apps that will be on your phone. We may not be in our building, but we are the church, and the church continues. And just like in Ezekiel's day, there is life in these old bones yet. You know, tomorrow, I don't know if Kyle will offer his allegiance to me or not. I think it depends on the snack situation. I'm pretty sure the cat, Darnley, won't be offering his allegiance to anyone. I believe it's a kind of cat thing. But whatever happens, I am 100% sure that out of the situation we are in, God can and God will do the impossible. He will bring life where it seems that everything is dead. He will renew things when we think things are finished and have ended. And He will cause us to look beyond our own situation and know that God has our future in His hands. Wherever you are, whatever situation you are in, I hope and pray that the story of the Valley of Dry Bones will give you hope and will help you to be reaffirmed that our life is in God, and that with God the impossible is possible. So do not give up hope, and hold on to the life that we find in our Lord and Saviour, Jesus Christ. God bless you all. Thank you.